The Kingdom of Benin, also known as the Edo Empire, was a kingdom located in the southwestern region of what is now Nigeria, lasting for at least 600 years under the Oba dynasty, and around 1,000 more if we count the previous Ogiso dynasty. Benin was one of the longest-lasting states in West Africa. Home to a capital city which awed visitors, a system of earthworks rivaling the Great Wall of China in length, and some of Africa's most famous works of art, this kingdom is an underappreciated gem of world history. This video is part of South of the Sahara, a collaboration between history YouTubers dedicated to highlighting the under-discussed history of sub-Saharan Africa. If this is your first introduction to the collaboration, be sure to check the description below for a link to the full playlist, where you'll find coverage of topics ranging from the Kingdom of Congo to the history of Judaism in Ethiopia. The Kingdom of Benin has its origins in antiquity, first as a confederation of towns and villages, and then as a kingdom known as Igodo-Migodo, ruled by monarchs known as Ogisos, or Sky Kings, from around the 1st century BCE. The Ogiso era is a bit like the pre-classical period of ancient Greece, where mythology and fact blend together, and legendary heroes are discussed alongside historical kings. Even toward the end of this period, we have some seemingly mythologized elements, with tales of heroes slaying man-eating beasts. It's only around the 12th century, give or take about a century, depending on the estimate, that Benin begins to transition out of the semi-mythical age, followed by the legendary foundations of the Oba dynasty. It was also during this period that we find the origins for both of the kingdom's popular names, Benin and Edo. So although there's a high degree of continuity between the Ogiso and Oba dynasties, we can consider the break between them to mark the end of Igodo-Migodo and the start of Benin. According to the founding legend of the Kingdom of Benin, the Ogiso dynasty ended with a poor king, Owodo, who was exiled after he killed a pregnant woman, a crime considered so dire as to negate royal authority. Owodo's only heir had previously been forced into exile due to a series of circumstances I don't have the time to get into, but the important thing is that, with no available heir to take over as Ogiso, the dynasty ended. In its place, a popular elder was elected head of state, and he ruled without issue for some time. However, when he tried to install his son as his successor, it was met with resistance from the rest of the ruling council of elders. Instead, they reached out to the Yoruba king Oduduwa in the city of Ile-Ife to come lead them. Why exactly they did this isn't fully clear. According to some versions of the story, Oduduwa was actually the exiled son of Owodo, and he was approached to essentially restore the Ogiso dynasty. However, Yoruba accounts firmly disagree with the claim that Oduduwa, considered a founding father of the Yoruba people, was of non-Yoruba origin. Instead, they claim that Oduduwa was simply approached as a respected, militarily powerful ally of Igodo-Migodo, who had defended them from invasion in the past. It might have been a situation a bit like the ascension of Ryorek in the Kievan Rus, where a confederation of Slavic princedoms invited a foreign warrior to rule over them, knowing that internal rivalries would cause issues if they chose one of their own. In any case, Oduduwa refused the offer himself. Instead, he sent his youngest son, Oromyan, in his place. Oromyan moved into a palace built for him in Usama, and lived there for several years, marrying the daughter of a local noble and having a son. However, throughout this period, his foreign style of governance met with stiff opposition from local nobles. Oromyan eventually became frustrated with the resistance. He declared Igodo-Migodo to be the land of vexation, or Ile-Ibinu. This phrase would be adapted into Ubinu as a name for the land, and particularly its capital city. Oromyan renounced his title, arguing that only a child born of local soil and raised in local customs could rule over the land. As such, he installed his native-born son as king in his place, and returned to Yoruba land himself, from which he would go on to found the Oyo Empire, another major state in what would become Nigeria. Oromyan's son, who is now known as Eweka, would be raised in Benin by a native mother and native attendants, and could thus be taken as fully belonging to the country. However, he still had a Yoruba father from the great city of Ile-Ife, something which set him apart from his subjects, and aspects of this unique identity would be emphasized throughout the history of Benin, as a way of framing the monarch as exceptional. This would form the basis of Benin's dynastic myth, the story which justified the right of their monarchs to rule. Eweka ushered in the beginning of the Oba era, Benin's second monarchical system. In many ways, the Obas represented a return to the norms of the Ogiso era. They retained much of the same symbolism, and styled themselves as semi-divine figures, much like their precursors. Additionally, like with the Ogisos, power is not totally centralized. The Oba sat at the head of the kingdom and held near absolute authority, but everyday governance largely fell to local hereditary nobles. These nobles and the Oba fell into a sort of symbiotic relationship. The Oba's ultimate, semi-divine authority meant that his approval granted legitimacy to the authority of the nobles, and the nobles managed the tasks of administering his realm and collecting tribute on his behalf. The nobles also held some collective authority through their council, the Uzama, which was able to check the Oba's power. Additionally, when the Oba died, the Uzama claimed the right to appoint a successor from amongst his sons. Through these privileges, the Uzama was able to wield significant power within the kingdom, sometimes putting them in an antagonistic relationship with the Obas. This situation changed in the 15th century with the ascension of the Oba Oware. Oware had been born as Prince Ogun, third-born son of the Oba Ohen. The decades before his rule saw a great deal of strife between the Uzama and the royal house. First, Oba Ohen was deposed and stoned to death by the Uzama after ordering the execution of a high-ranking noble, with his oldest son, Ogbeka, replacing him. However, Oba Obeka also struggled against the Uzama, fighting multiple civil wars against them. Prince Ogun and his younger brother were both exiled, while another brother, Orobiru,